Afternoon, folks. Hope you're having a good one. And hope you're chilling out. I'm certainly chilling out. There's nobody here this week. I have a guest on next week. I'm hoping it will be one of Medbury Miniatures or another writer of Games Workshop's product line. So we'll be having that conversation next week. I'll be recording it sometime early next week. And if you haven't been contacted to be on the show until now, don't worry, I will be in contact over the weekend when I get all my stuff done. Depending on who gets back to me, that's the person who will be on first. So, this week, every other week, I wanted to do a session where it's just me talking, because I used to do this way back in the day. I don't know if anyone remembers. If you're an OG person on the channel, you will remember the time before I went to America, before my adventures over there started and ended, that I used to do podcasts semi-regularly on the channel, and I would do them literally just me talking into a microphone about life and about things that I wanted to go over and stuff like that. And I thought every other week we will do that kind of a podcast, and every other week after that we will do a guest kind of a podcast, just so you know what's coming and when. So, I do have a few questions to go over, because people have asked me to answer some questions, and all my questions will be taken from Patreon. So if you like what I do, then Patreon is down below in the description. Feel free to go and do whatever you want with that. I normally have a rule of, if you can afford to give it 10 times, then give it once. So if you can afford to give £10, give £1. You know what I mean? That's my rule. And so please don't give me whatever you can't afford, because that makes me feel really shitty. And aside from that, that's pretty much it. We can actually get on with the podcast. So, wanted to start with how things are going in my life. Things are going pretty well. I am teaching. I am working extremely hard, proofreading, and I'm writing a book for somebody at the moment as well. Fully paid, not like it's, a free gig, although I only get paid when it's published, which sucks, but, it is what it is. And, yeah, I wanted to go over teaching. That's one thing I wanted to talk about, because I did bring it up in a podcast, well, not a podcast, the Hobby Nightmare, a few weeks ago. And essentially, before I even get into that, what I want this podcast to be right now is for you to just listen to it as you're on the train, on the bus, doing some cooking, doing some painting, whatever, more long-form content. So don't be expecting any sort of ranty rants here. Well, maybe, you know what I'm like. Yeah, I was asked the question the other week of why I got out of teaching in classrooms, in normal classrooms, after only doing it for like a year and a half. Simple answer being, I preferred doing it in the United States. So in the US, I was teaching in a school in Chicago that was considered a quite run-down school. It was considered a school that wasn't very well off. It was considered quite a poor school. It was mainly consisted of a Hispanic or black student body. There were like, I could name the white kids in the school on like one hand, essentially. So most of the teaching faculty are white, but like most of the kids are from a poorer income background, unfortunately. And I will say this: there were better facilities in that school than any school I've been a part of in the United Kingdom. In my first, I was a teacher full-time for a year and a half in the UK before I went to the US, and then after I came back from the US. And I was a supply teacher for about a year before then. And so I've taught in many schools. I was shocked when I went to the United States and I was told that I was going to be teaching in a very rough school, and they were very apologetic about it, that they placed me there, and it was just one of those things. And I went into that school, and I had the time of my life. I absolutely loved it. The kids were amazing, the faculty were amazing, the kids were so respectful and hard-working. You could just tell that they just didn't want to be in the ghetto. They didn't want to be, working at Denny's the rest of their lives. They didn't want to be, they wanted to go and do things. And they were trying. They were really pushing it, and that made me work so much harder for them. The facilities at the school were second to none, as far as I'm concerned, when compared to UK schools. When compared to other US schools, they were the pits. They simply were. The sports playing facilities, everything was the pits. Compared to like what my missus at the time, where she was teaching, was a very posh school. It was like space age. It was literally like you were learning at NASA or somewhere. Whereas the school I was at was considered quite run down, and it was still better than any school I've ever taught in the UK, sheerly from a facilities standpoint and a camaraderie between the teachers standpoint. Everybody was getting along, everybody was happy, everybody was pulling in the same direction, and everybody was... We used to do a weekly meeting in the auditorium, and the auditorium of this school was basically larger than Albert Hall. It was massive. This thing can seat, you know, eight odd thousand people quite easily, just all the way back there. It's a huge auditorium where we did our weekly meetings. We all sat near the front, and we would go over, you know, things that are happening in the school, congratulations, who did well that week. And to make me feel welcome towards the end of like my time there, they actually gave me a round of applause, which was like unheard of. You would never get that in a UK school. You would never ever get that in the UK school. Mainly because the thing about the UK attitude that I find quite hard to deal with at times is that cynical nastiness. It is a UK thing, and it's a double-edged sword. Whilst, yes, it does mean that we're quite self-reliant most of the time, and we are quite strong mentally most of the time, it also means that we can come across as quite cold and quite cynical and quite nasty to other people. Especially when you go to a school like this, and they celebrate your hard work, they celebrate what you're doing right, they celebrate the fact that you're one of them, and you're helping them out, and they don't act like they're doing you a favour by giving you the time of day. Same thing goes for restaurants in the United States as well. Most of the time, they act like they're actually happy for you to be there because they want your tips, because their tips subsidise their wages, and if they get good tips, they can get more. They can make more in the service industry than you can in the UK. A lot more. I've got a friend of theirs working in a bar, and he when I was working in a bar when I first came back to the UK, this is years ago now, he was earning like 3 or 4 times what I was earning, because my tips are shared with everybody else. And you don't really get tips in the UK. You get like a 20p tip per drink, you know, or if you get a tip, it's like a 5 to 10% tip. In the US, you can tip whatever you want, and people know that your wages are subsidized by tips. And so if you do a good job, you can walk away from a table with like a $60, $70, $80 tip when you're making $20 an hour, $15 an hour, right? And let's now say that you're working, let's say, 3 to 4 tables an hour. Let's say you get an $80 tip from 2 of those tables. You've just made nearly $200 in an hour. Which is why I think unions are bullshit. But like, I'll get into that another time. I generally think unions hold back the working man these days rather than doing anything for them. But you know, it is what it is. Again, there are certain sectors where unions are good. There are certain sectors though where they are not good, and where they literally just hold you back. One of which is actually for me and teaching, because I actually wanted to get a PhD, and I was told in the UK not to get a PhD because no school will hire me. Why? Because of unions, every school would have to pay me a certain amount of money if I have a PhD. I can't even voluntarily take less money. I cannot voluntarily take yet less money if I've got a PhD. I have to, by law, take a certain amount of money. And no school will be willing to pay me for it, so I can't go and get my PhD. Thanks, unions. Right? That sort of shit. Right? It's none of your business what I decide to take and what I decide not to take from my paycheck, okay? Personal responsibility, personal freedom, I'm very big on them. And anyone who tells me I can or can't do certain things with my money, my resources, my time, can go fuck themselves. Anyway, back to why I left teaching. When I came back to the UK, the attitude of people in schools was completely different. Fun fact, I was actually offered a job not too long ago by the school in America, but it wasn't a high-paid job. It was basically a glorified substitute teacher, and I would have to pay for everything else myself, my flights, my initial rent, things like that. And whilst I have the money to do that, it would clear me out, and I didn't want to do it, so I turned it down. I want to be a teacher. I don't want to be a substitute teacher. I've earned the right to actually teach. Thank you very much. You know, I don't care how good your school is. Anyway, so when I came to schools in the UK, many of them were very cynical. Many of them were very cliquey. Many of them were very treating the kids as if they were burdens. Many of them were treating you as a new teacher as kind of a second-class citizen. You're not worth talking to. You're not worth nurturing. You're not worth training. You know, whatever. Throw you in at the deep end, see if you sink or swim. And I didn't like that attitude. And when I actually met the kids over here, remember what I said about US kids in general? Very respectful, wanted to learn, wanted to do well. Yeah, the kids in UK schools are little cunts, for the most part. Horrible little shits who have a inflated sense of their own self-importance. They're very arrogant, very up themselves, and refuse to do what they're told, refuse to do work, and then wonder why they get bad results. They have the gall to say, why have you given me this result? Why have you given me that result? Because your work's wrong, and you're acting like a fucking retard. That's why I gave you a bad result. That's why you're in this class with me. You're trying to learn basic history because you don't have a brain. Why don't you have a brain? Because your parents never told you you needed to have a brain. Because working class in the US is not the same as working class in the UK. Working class in the US generally means pick up your fucking socks, put your big boy pants on, and go to work. Work your ass off for what you want. That's how you're brought up. That's how you're shown how to live. Working class, as far as I'm concerned, in the UK so far, sorry, since I've been an adult, it's not your fault. It's everybody else's fault. It's the government's fault. It's everybody else's fault but your fault. You're a perfect, beautiful angel, and everybody should just throw money at you because you're perfect. Lo and behold, if you're told that from the time you're 6, you become a bit of a prick when you get older. Who would have thought? Again, don't get me wrong. If you're the kind of person who is not that person, congratulations to you. I'm also, and I like to think I'm not that kind of a person because I was brought up properly by people who actually go to work and actually want to make something of themselves in life. But does anybody else have this thing where they look at people that they were at school with, who were morons in school and really haven't grown up since because they're douches and they're having kids? And I'm looking at those kids thinking, I'm not teaching you. I am not teaching you. Because I know your dad is a retard. And I mean that in a way of a dickhead. Right? Your dad is a brainless, feckless wanker. And I know exactly how he's bringing you up. I am not teaching you. Go somewhere else. Or I will go somewhere else. I will remove myself from... Those are all the reasons in a ball, beyond pay, beyond the overwork, underpay that teachers get, right, in the UK, which they do. Here's another thing. In the US, I taught 2 classes to 3 classes a day. Yeah. I taught 2 to 3 classes a day. As a full-time teacher, I taught 2 to 3 classes a day. That was it. The rest of my day was lesson plans, the rest of my day was marking, and you know what? I went home and I never thought about teaching again until the next day. You know? Sometimes I would go home and do a lesson plan, sometimes I would do it over the weekend, but I had my own time. I had my own time to recharge, I had my own time to go away and calm down after a hard day's work of teaching, and I'd only teach for 3 hours a day. Well, not even 3 hours, 45 minutes each class. So, you know, just over 2.5 hours, maybe, sometimes. In the UK, you're teaching 6, 7, maybe even 8 lessons a day. Each of which you have to lesson plan, each of which you have marking for, and by the way, most UK schools look over your lesson plans and tell you to do them again, like they're marking you like a fucking 7-year-old. Yeah, no thanks. No thanks. So yeah, your kids could have had teachers like me. Because I'm a fucking good teacher. Your kids could have had teachers like me. But because of the way the country is, because of the way that certain kids are brought up, because of the way the government treats teachers, and because of the way teachers in this country treat other teachers, your kids will not have teachers like me. Your kids will have teachers who hate your kids. And can't be arsed, and are overworked and stressed. And do you know what? Those teachers will leave. When I was a kid, my teachers were around for my entire time at school. As far as, every single kid I speak to these days, and I've spoken to a lot, obviously, it's my profession, they have new teachers every year. Because they just leave. They leave the profession. They're overstressed, overworked. Yeah, fuck teaching, man. Fuck teaching, especially in the UK. It's a noble profession. It really is. Probably one of the most noble professions you can do. But in the UK, the cynicism that we have over here, the we're doing you a favour by giving you a job attitude we have over here, makes the job untenable. You can't do it in the UK without burning the candle at both ends and ruining your own life. So, that's why I don't teach in the UK. As I said, I'm not going to be ranty in these videos, but, if I have something to say, then I'll say it. It is what it is. And I'm sure a lot of you have had that same experience where you look on Facebook or something at the people that you knew in school and they're all having kids and you're just thinking to yourself, oi, you were an absolute nightmare in school, so I hate to think what your kids are going to be like, because I shit you not. What you're like in school informs what you're like when you're older. It just does. People don't change that much. People like to say they do, they don't. People don't change that much from school. They do not. Each and every single person, most of them that I know from school, is almost exactly the same person as they are now. Almost. Slight changes here and there, but almost exactly the same person. Even me, good and bad, I'm almost exactly the same person. I've smoothed off the edges a little bit, but I'm almost exactly the same person as I was. But there are a lot of people in school, some of them are friends of mine, right, that I knew in school, who have had kids, and I think, yeah, I'm not teaching your kids, man. Because you were a fucking nightmare in school. And whenever you're on Facebook, whenever you're on any sort of social media, you're a fucking nightmare there as well. So, I don't want to teach your kids. Goodbye. Alright? I'm sure you've all had that thought of, oh my god, these people are having kids. They can't have kids. They're morons. Right? And there you go. I mean, you're listening to this, so I'm sure you're not one of those people. But yeah, I'm sure you recognise what I'm talking about when I talk about those people. So yeah, that's why I'm not teaching, for those of you who are wondering, or at least that's why I'm not teaching high school anymore. I'm teaching in colleges, and I teach university seminars whenever I do teach. So, that is what I do. And mostly, when people say to me, like, what do you do? Like, what do you do? Like, what's your profession? I say, I'm a professional dean. And what I mean by that is, so I teach in seminars, I teach in colleges, but that's not a full-time job, I could treat it that way, but I don't. So I do that once or twice a week, get a bit of money from that. I do some proofreading in my spare time, get a bit of money from that. I mark work from different schools across the UK, I get a bit of money from that. I do YouTube, I get a bit of money from that. I have Patreon, I get a bit of money from that. And I do editing, get a bit of money from that, and of course I'm writing this book as well, and I will eventually be paid from that. So I end up earning like a half decent amount a month. But when I talk about Patreon and why, like, if you like my content, then support it, but the reason why I say that is because I'm self-employed. If I was in a 9-to-5 job and then doing this on top of that, then I wouldn't be doing Patreon almost at all. So I'm already earning my money, I'm doing this for fun, right? And whilst I am doing this for fun, the amount of time I put into it is directly correlated to the amount of money I can get out of it, because I'm self-employed. So any time I use on this channel, I'm taking away from other places where I could be earning money. It's just die-in-the-wall capitalism, that's how the world works. It just is what it is. It's economics. Another question I was asked the other day was what do I like and not like about YouTube, which is very, very, very interesting. These are the questions that don't have names by them, by the way. The rest of them will do. So, what do I like and not like about YouTube? What I like is days like yesterday. So yesterday was a day where I got up and I continued to see my ad revenue go down for no reason. I continued to see YouTube nuke my channel of views and not pushing my content and things like that. And then all of a sudden I did a very heartfelt video yesterday about the state of 40k, and it kind of blew up. And when I say blew up, it'll probably end up at about 7,000 or 8,000 views, which is a lot for me. And don't get me wrong, YouTube still won't pay me for that. Like, when my channel first started, I used to get, say, for a 7,000 to 8,000 view video, I would get like $60, $70, which is a lot for a YouTube video, right? Now I get like 10, 15. For no reason. Like, even my ads are being played in the right countries. Like, that was the one thing where I thought maybe that's not what it is. No, everything's exactly the same as it was back then. YouTube have just decided to pay me less money. That's one thing that I hate about YouTube. But one of the great things I love about YouTube is that I was sitting there in a cafe with a friend, doing a bit of work, and then we played some cards, card game, a fantasy card game, and I was looking at my phone, and I was seeing all of these comments flying in on the video, and I could see the video was doing really well and getting really good traction, and I just absolutely loved that. I just thought, this is great, and this is what I want from YouTube. I want every single video to be like this. It felt amazing, and again, that's nothing to do with the monetary compensation. But it felt good because people were engaging with the video. It felt good because people were watching it and were getting a lot out of it. That's why it felt great. And so I think I'm going to start doing more long-form content. Well, not long-form content, but content like that. The 40k is broken video. I'd like to start doing more content that's looking at a broader spectrum of the hobby rather than just Hobby Nightmares. Especially like 2 or 3 times a week, like do something that is literally just, let's talk about the hobby and what's going on with it, rather than just doing Hobby Nightmares. Hobby Nightmares will never go away, because I think it's too amusing not to. Some of the stories that I hear are so good, but I know that YouTube is tanking those videos. Those videos used to get like, 5, 6, 7, 8,000 views each, and now they're getting 1 to 2. That's because they're just not pushing the videos. They're literally just not pushing the video. They're exactly the same videos. They're not pushing them. I'm not getting any love from the algorithm whatsoever. Even people who are subscribed to me are surprised that my videos are published. They're like, oh my god, I've missed like 7 videos. I get those messages all the time. Oh my god, I've missed like 8, 9 videos because YouTube just hasn't told me about them. Well, that's great, but like, if I've published a video and you don't see it till like a month later, I don't really get paid for that video, because even if it gets a huge upsurge in views, I don't get that much money from the views. Right? It's only when you first publish the video when you really make your money. When YouTube really pays attention to you and starts giving you ad revenue. So, it doesn't help. Like, even if people discover it later, and there are loads of different ways where YouTube can make money off you, and they can swindle you out of what you're owed. Is what I don't like about YouTube. I love the feeling that I had last night. I went to bed and thought, do you know what? I really made a difference to people's days there, and that's made me feel really happy. And I've got a lot more view counts, a lot more watch time hours, and so for some reason, YouTube caught that video, the 40k is broken video, and pushed it, and made sure that people saw it. And it made me feel good. Now, don't get me wrong, YouTube will pay me $10 for that video. They should be paying me $80, $90 for the video, but I'll get like 10. It doesn't bother me. What bothers me is that I'm helping people, and if they're not pushing my content, no one's seeing it, and then you start getting the monetary problems of YouTube. Then you start having to have people from Patreon come in and bail you out, and that shouldn't be the case, right? The only thing keeping me around on YouTube at the moment is Patreon. That's literally the only thing keeping me around. And members on the channel, of course, who obviously pay a monthly to become members of the channel. But the only thing keeping me around and not like lowering my hours that I do on YouTube, because I'm doing 5 videos a week right now, most weeks. That's a lot of content for somebody who takes hours out of the day every day to do it and doesn't get paid anything for it. To be honest with you, from YouTube itself. So the only thing that's making it worth my while to actually take time out, where I could be earning 4, 5, 6 times as much money doing other things, is Patreon. And even then, even with Patreon, and I'm incredibly grateful for that, but even with that, I'm earning a quarter of what I could earn elsewhere per month by doing other things. It's just, that's the only thing keeping me in the game right now, and keeping the 5 videos a week, 4 or 5 videos a week going, is that. Because, number one, it's an incredible shot in the arm to have people put that much faith in you. And number two, I also feel like, you know, I'm beholden to give those people the content that they deserve for helping me out. But YouTube can go suck a dick, honestly. Like, it really can. And I don't care what they think about me saying that on a video. They don't really care about me anyway. I'm such a small channel. But those are the two things that I really love and hate about YouTube. The first is the effect that I can have on people, the mental health that I can offer people, the way that I can ensure that people are feeling good about themselves and making sure that they're having a good time at work or at home or whatever, where they can listen to me, they feel like they've got a friend. I've got that message so many times where people have said, you know, it really feels like there's somebody in the room with me. And I've had people say I start talking back to my videos, which is funny. When they say, yeah, you know, the amount of times I've like said, yeah, you're right. When you've been talking in a video, that means an incredible amount to me. So that's the main reason why I do YouTube. Taking that away from me is the main thing I hate, and taking it away from me for no reason is something that I really hate. I hate that about YouTube. I hate the fact that they tank my videos for no reason, literally no reason. It was very weird when they started doing it, because when they started doing it, I was still getting lots of views, but they just tanked my money. They just said, yeah, we were paying you $10 per 1,000 views, now we're going to pay you $2. Why? Don't know. Just are. Okay. Cool. You know. That started. That was the first thing that started, and then my view count started to match that number. So they basically tanked my videos to the point where, you know, $5 to $10 a video is what I should be earning, because I'm only getting 2,000 views. Again, it's bullshit, because even my subscribers aren't seeing my videos pushed in their feeds, which is horrible. But it is what it is. You've got to do a video every single time with YouTube to catch fire. What they do is they put you on a treadmill, and if, oh my god, if you step off that treadmill for 1 second, if you start getting into a routine for 1 second, like with Hobby Nightmares, they tank you. They tank your videos. Go and do something else. Which is why the 40k is broken video took off yesterday. It's because I did something else for once, and it took off, you know? So I might need to start doing more content like that. I don't know. We'll see. Anyway, those are the things that I love and hate about YouTube. So now into named questions. So Tyler Martinez is a patron. All these people are patrons, so thank you very much. He says, why are Black Library books not available in certain countries or only available in certain areas? So most of it is to do with shelf space. And if you're talking about a brick and mortar retailer, most of it is to do with shelf space. Most of it is to do with, I mean, I ran a Games Workshop, and I still didn't have enough shelf space to give you all of the Black Library books. The only shop that does that in the UK is Warhammer World Shop. Literally the only one that does the most of the Black Library books all there for you to buy, ready to go. In terms of it, of them not being available at all in certain countries, I can only suspect that's a licensing issue, or that is a supply and demand issue. It costs Games Workshop more money to send product and things like that. Books are very heavy to certain parts of the world than it does to send other things. So they will only tend to send things to Australia, to South America, to Asia that sell, especially if it's heavy and in bulk, like books. So yeah, they will only send, if it's a Black Library book, they will tend to only send things that are going to sell. If the book that you want isn't selling that well, then you probably won't find it in a brick and mortar retailer. If it's online and you can't get it, then I'm not sure. I'm honestly not sure. You'll have to take that up with Games Workshop. But yeah, that's the answer to that question. Sky, who is also a patron, hello Sky, is a patron, and he asks, What makes a good war game? And what makes a good RPG? Well, I could get into this for hours. I'm not going to, obviously, but what makes a good war game? To me, what makes a good war game and what makes a good RPG is very similar. Easy to learn, hard to master. That's literally what makes a good war game and a good RPG. Nothing more, nothing less. Literally, nothing more, nothing less. Easy to learn, hard to master. Make sure that, for me, a war game is robust enough to release all of its rules at once, as in all of the army rules for every army and the main rules, core rules at once. If it's robust enough to do that, then I consider it a successful war game. I do not understand why Games Workshop can't do that, considering there are much smaller publishers and gaming companies who do it regularly and are able to do it with a certain panache, right? Balance, yes. Balance is a huge thing that makes a good war game. In terms of not having your game ruled by money, which is what Games Workshop's, well, a lot of Games Workshop's games are. They're ruled by what sells and what doesn't sell. Things that do sell will be a lot better in the game than things that don't sell. I mean, have you ever seen an underpowered army that sells really well? No, of course you haven't. Like, you know what I mean? Like, if it sold well, it'd be overpowered. It'd be very powerful, and because they want you to buy more of it, they encourage you to buy more of it. That's what capitalism is, right? Supply and demand. If you buy a thing, it'll become more scarce. The prices will go up because they can charge you whatever they like. If you're not buying something, the prices will go down. The problem with Games Workshop is they never lower their prices on anything because they know that they are devaluing their own product by doing so because they are a niche product. So Games Workshop will never do a sale. They will never lower their prices. Ever. They will only ever go in one direction, and that's up. I don't care how many times they say, oh, we'll eat the cost of the Brexit costs. Oh, will you? You just made nearly £60 million in flat cash. Literal profit. Go fuck yourself. Oh, we'll eat the cost of Brexit. Oh, will you really? Go fuck off, will you? Fucking virtue signal to me, you little capitalist twat. Don't get me wrong, capitalism works. It's great. It does. It works. It's just we always get arseholes like this who take advantage out of people. By the way, people who don't like capitalism, your little pie-in-the-sky systems, people would find ways around them too to exploit people, because that's what people do. That's what people do. Capitalism isn't the problem. The people in capitalism is the problem. Look at the sheer amount of people who fled Russia and Eastern Europe and China and North Korea and anywhere, Africa, anywhere else, and they've gone to America, and when they're asked, what do you think of capitalism, they say it's the greatest thing ever in the world, because I can work hard and make money. It's reliable. It's just reliable. I can work hard and make money. Do people fall through the cracks? Of course they do. But they fall through the cracks in every single system. And I'm getting sick of people saying, well, capitalism's evil. No, it's not. It's the least evil one of an evil bunch. Right? You look at communism, you look at all these different horrible things that are in the world. This is the least evil way we can do of solving things, right? Democracy is also... democracy is retarded. It's stupid. And it doesn't really work. But still, in the modern world, it's the best form of government we've got. It's the lesser of all the evils. Because running a country is very, very complicated and people always fall through the cracks. Capitalism's the best system. So far. I'm sorry, it just is. Don't care how many times you got your bloody Che Guevara t-shirt on, right, reading The Independent. It still works the best. Supply and demand. Right? If you want something, pay for it. If you want to sell something, sell it. And if you build it, they will come. The entire YouTube ecosystem that allows people to get paid money, even though I've just been slagging them off for a little while, if it worked as it's supposed to work, the entire YouTube ecosystem is supposed to be built on capitalist ideals. It's supposed to be built on, you do good content that people want to watch, here's some money. Literally, that's how it's supposed to work. The reason why I don't like it is because that's not how it works. Because you have greedy people at the top taking the piss out of everybody else. But in every single system, there are greedy people at the top taking the piss out of everybody else. It's just, for the most part, when people do that in capitalism, people don't fucking die of starvation. There we go, right? Of course they do. Right, I raise you communism. Yes? Where everybody starves. Hooray. Anyway. So... what was I talking about? Oh yeah, war games. I told you these would be weird. I told you that. People said I want to do... I said, you know, I said on the Discord server, and I've said on Patreon, do you want me to do a podcast that is just guests or me rambling and just guests? And he said, oh, the second one, please. And well, I'm going to warn you, it's going to get weird. Oh no, we love weird. Okay, cool. Well, here it is. So what makes a good war game? Balance to me. Your game not being focused on monetary values. Your game being focused on being a good game first and foremost. Difficult to master. Easy to pick up is the main thing that you need to look for in a good war game and a good RPG. A good RPG, a tabletop RPG, is exactly the same. Your rules should be easy to pick up but difficult to master. What is my favourite style of tabletop RPG? Is actually the D6 system of picking up a load of D6s and then just rolling them and seeing what successes that you get, right? That's it. Dead easy, dead simple. You don't need to worry about it too much. I don't really like percentile systems. Not really my thing. I don't really like having to roll under your stats. Again, it's just counterintuitive to me. I want to roll high numbers, not low numbers. It's just a pet peeve of mine. Yeah, I don't like that in Wargaming 2. I love the 40k and Sigmar and Old World version of just rolling a d6 and seeing what comes up. I love basing an entire game on a d6. I prefer the d6. It's just what I like using. The one thing about Dungeons and Dragons that I can't stand is different dices for different damages. Why? 1d4 plus 6. Why? Just roll a d6. Just roll a d6. Stop being such a prick. It's 1d10 plus 1. Is it? Right, okay, cool. Just give me some d6, let me roll them. Stop being such a dickhead, right? Yeah, so anyway, that's what I think makes a good war game. Difficult to master, but easy to pick up. And most war games that I know that I've done quite well are that kind of game. There's a reason why one-page rules is doing very well. My ideal scenario for a Warhammer 40,000 edition is one-page rules with another 5 or 6 pages on top of it. You know? And those 5 or 6 pages are basically different army lists and different army codexes, right? So each army takes that one page of the rules and adds 5 or 6 pages to them and says, okay, well, here's your army lists, here are the different things your army can do within those rules. Here are, you know, different stat lines, things like that. Here are different things that you can take in your army for different points values, that kind of a thing. That is the ideal scenario for me. Maybe I'll call it 2-page rules. Instead of 1, you've got 2. I think 1 is a little bit too simple and chopped down. I really enjoy it, but it's kind of like playing backgammon sometimes. And maybe I don't want to play backgammon, maybe I want to play a war game. Maybe I want to have my anorak hat on for 5 minutes and work out something really cool. So I think 2-page rules would be a really good way of going about it. And taking the simplicity of 1-page rules and just turning it up a little bit. Just a little bit, you know. So you got 2 pages full of rules that you can go into, and that runs the game. That's the game engine, right? And on top of the game engine, the codex that you buy, or the army book that you buy, is like the chassis and the seats and the steering wheel and everything that goes on top of it. That's your army, and away you go, you know? That kind of thing. That's how I would do it. That's how I like to build RPGs. That's how I like to build war games. Is that I like to treat the main core rules as the engine that's in the car. Everything that goes around the engine is up to you. Like, that's basically you making your character in an RPG, or you're building your army from an army book in a war game. And what we do then is we smash the cars together until one of the cars breaks, and that person loses the war game, and the person who broke your car wins the war game. Simple, right? That's the way I like to think about it. in terms of a war game. That's my little analogy for what I use when I'm writing and things like that. Also, I know people probably have switched off by now because of the political stuff that was said before, because they're going to get like, nah, he said something that I don't agree with. You know, that kind of a thing. Just remember, I'm a moron. So, you know, if a moron saying something political on YouTube's ruined your day, I think that probably says more about you than it does about this specific moron who's talking into a microphone. I think what your problem is, if you do have a problem with me doing this, is that I have a microphone and people want to hear about me, all three of them, and you don't. That's what it is. It's not. You're not angry about me having an opinion. You're angry that it doesn't match yours, and no one gives a shit what you think. That, you know, I mean, I'm just gonna rip the band-aid off for you. There you go. That's what it is. So, you know, and I'm not somebody who pretends to have lots of people following him either. As I just said, there are about 3 people on my Discord who give a shit what I think, because everybody knows I'm a moron, right? I'm ignorant. I'm just an ignorant arsehole. It's what I am, right? I don't deny it. Listen, every conversation I've had with ex-girlfriends will tell you how much of an ignorant arsehole I am. Anyway, Alex says, what Xenos races do you think are just right, and what Xenos races would you change the lore for in Warhammer 40,000? Just right. In terms of just right, I'd probably say none of them. Because, and I think that's a symptom of the Space Marines getting far too much airtime. I think a lot of the lore, especially for Eldar and Necrons, is kind of wishy-washy. It's kind of like, yeah, the Eldar had this empire and now it's gone. And now they have craft worlds, kind of. And then they have these things, kind of. And then, you know, these things happen. There's nothing in depth. Like, what I mean is, there are like, I remember there was a spread in White Dwarf about the craft world Eondon being attacked by Tyranids. And the only thing they were focusing on was that the Eldar were crying. It's like, really? But these are like badass elf samurai. Can we not just have them do some cool shit? Like, alright, fair enough. You know, and that's what I mean. Like everybody but Space Marines tends to be boiled down to the meme by Games Workshop, and I hate that shit. I really, really, really hate it. The only Space Marine army that's really memey is Space Wolves, which is why I don't like them. One of the main reasons why I don't like them. Because they're just reduced down to being uninteresting and wolf this, wolf that, wolf that. Who cares, right? Whereas with like Necrons and Tyranids and Eldar and Dark Eldar and Orcs, they're just boiled down to being the meme. So Eldar are crying all the time. Necrons are basically bitchy Egyptians. Orcs are stupid. You know, it's just... What? Can we not have any nuance or anything? The very reason why people like Space Marines so much, because most of them have a lot of nuance. Look at the White Scars. Let me just take a name off the top of my head. The White Scars are fucking brutal. Absolutely brutal. They go on these hunts across the galaxy that behead people, and they take their heads back to their fortress monastery, and they present them to people and say, look, I killed this person. Right? That's brutal. That's brutal shit. Right? If you go against the White Scars, they'll murder you, they'll murder your family, they'll murder your family's pets, they'll murder your friends, they'll murder their pets. But on the other side, the White Scars are warrior poets. They practice calligraphy. They write books about their experiences in the galaxy and what it means to be a good person and how to become a better man and shit like that. They're philosophers. They have depth to them, is what I'm saying. They have duality. They have two sides of the coin in a single person. Every single Space Marine chapter, apart from Space Wolves, has this. Which is why they're written well. Even Black Templars have this. Even Black Templars have that, right? They're very xenophobic, they're very out there, they're the most one-dimensional chapter apart from Space Wolves, okay? But they're also knights. They also are obsessed with protecting the righteous. If you don't believe me, go read the novel on Hell's Reach with Grimaldus in it, right? These guys are obsessed with doing good and helping the righteous. It just happens that if you're not righteous in their eyes, they don't just not care about you, they're going to murder the fuck out of you, right? That's the duality of the Black Templars. The duality of the Dark Angels. I could go on, right? I could go on and on and on and on. I can't say that about Eldar or Dark Eldar. Dark Eldar are sadomasochistic fetishists who are evil. That's the Dark Eldar. Eldar are crying, whingy crybabies who are kind of girly. That's it. That's it. There's nothing else. And I know a lot of people are going to be triggered by that. Well, what about this obscure story in her? Yeah. Oh, it's obscure. That's the whole point. It's obscure. No one's read it apart from you big fucking nerd. Right? No one's read it. No one knows about it, so no one cares. If a tree falls in the forest, no one's around to hear it. Does a hobbyist give a fuck? No, because they haven't read the story. Okay? It's just like the Star Wars thing. I don't want to hear about it in a novel. I want to see it in the movie. Thank you. I don't want to go read the extended novel. No, I don't have that much time. Put it in the movie. Exactly the same with Eldar and Orcs. Stop boiling them down to their meme of who they are and give us some nuanced people within the lore. I shouldn't have to go on the wiki to find shit out about a faction. I should be able to, like, literally think, well, that's a cool, you know, that's a cool race. I want to go find out more about them. Look at the Lewittin lore videos in Warhammer 40,000. Where do the Eldar turn up? Right at the start. Because the Eldar are intrinsic to the start of the Warhammer 40,000 setting. Where are they after that? Nowhere. Because no one gives a fuck. Exactly. Right? You go on YouTube right now and you look for Eldar lore videos. Most of them will be 6 minutes long. Because that's all we have. That's all we have. The Eldar codexes are tiny. Tiny. Because they have a lot of rules to them, but a really shitty amount of lore. Same with Dark Eldar, same with Orcs, right? I want me Diggers back. Diggers were really interesting. Give me Diggers back. We can't have that though, because they make Orcs interesting. We can't have them being interesting because Games Workshop don't trust you to have a brain. They don't. This is why they will never lower any of the prices. Because they don't trust you to have a brain. They think you'll just keep buying it verbatim every year. Because you do. Because you're morons, most of you. Sorry, but, you know. A lot of you buy FIFA as well. Morons. Same game every year. Yeah. Just stop it. Vote with your wallet. If you vote with your wallet or tell them that you want something. Tell them. Give us more nuanced Xenos races, please. And maybe you'll start selling some. But they don't want to sell any. That's the whole point. They don't want to sell any. They want to sell fucking Space Marines. Anyway, that's my answer to that question anyway. I would redo the lore for every Xenos race. Every one of them. I'm not saying I'd change a lot, but I would add to every single one of them. You know, I literally, you could go on about the Necrons for ages, or the Tau for ages. You could have entire book series dedicated to them. You know, entire codexes full of lore and background and how their empires are expanding, how their culture works, how their systems of government works. You could do that all of the time, and they don't do it because they don't want to. They want you to go on the wiki because you're a nerd and you like Xenos. Put it in the codex. Give me some material for me to do lore videos on about Xenos races, please. Please. You've seen it once with Warhammer Fantasy Battles. Every single faction got a lot of lore. Because it was a fantasy world. And fantasy worlds are built on lore. 40k is built on memes. Unfortunately. Anyway. Joshua Brown says, if you could create a core stratagem, what would it be? Oh. From a selfish point of view, I would have a core stratagem. That means if you arrive from Deep Strike, you can charge with 3d6, not discarding your highest, not discarding your lowest, by the way. you charge 3d6. I would use that as a stratagem. I would have an army come in every single time I've done an army, and I've done my own codex. Same with the Astral Blades as well. One of their main chapter tactics is if they arrive from deep strike and they charge 3d6, because that's their main strength of their army is closing with the enemy and hitting them over the head. So all of their stratagems should be geared towards closing with the enemy and slicing them to pieces, right? So that's one stratagem that I would do as a core stratagem. That means that anybody who plays a similar army to me, especially orcs, people like that, how powerful that'd be with orcs, that'd be so fucking cool. And Eldar and anyone really, you could deep strike things in, have them slam into the battlefield, and charge 3d6. That'd be terrifying. You could no longer have these ridiculous gun line armies. Well, you could, but you know you would have to like be very, very careful about what's coming down. I've got a friend of mine who likes to space his models around so that you can't deep strike, and then is really pedantic about where you can and can't deep strike. But it slows down the game. It really, really, really does. And so the 3d6 system will open it up a little bit, but that still gives me a little bit of work to do to get into combat. But it means that we can't slow the game down every 5 seconds when I want to bring a unit in, because he spread his units around in such a way that I can't, or that I can, but only in one certain area. That kind of a thing. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. So I would do that. I would have for a stratagem, it would be like 3 CP, so it'd be quite expensive. But I would have this unit arriving from deep strike can charge 3d6 instead of 2. Essentially, that would be my thing. Anyway, I'm going to answer the rest of these next time because we're nearly at an hour, and I don't really want to be going over that. I want to be making sure that we're giving you a decent podcast, but not one that's going to take all day to watch. Love you all, long time. I will speak to you tomorrow with more Hobby Nightmares. I might do a live stream either tonight, which is Thursday, or over the weekend, or maybe both. I don't know. Depends how much energy I have left after I've done my marking today. So, love you all. Speak to you later. Have a good one. See you later. Bye.